Opinions of Ancients on Physiological Value of Seminal Conservation. The ancient Greek philosophers speculated much concerning a possible internal physiological function of the semen when retained within the body. Thus, Pythagoras, whose followers, among whom were some of the greatest mathematicians, astronomers, and philosophers of antiquity, were required to live in the strictest chastity, called the semen the flower of the purest blood, which should be carefully preserved. Plato, who led a continent life, considered the seminal fluid as coming from the spinal marrow, the loss of which, as a consequence, depleted the body of the essence of nervous vitality. Aristotle, who also led a chaste life, termed the semen the most perfect part of the food, and claimed that the eating of stimulating and pungently flavoured foods caused its loss. Democritus, like Hippocrates and Galen, thought it to be secreted by all parts of the body. Epicurus advised all who would attain to the highest earthly perfection to carefully preserve the semen. Hippocrates and Aristotle believed that there was a correlation between the testicular fluid and the brain, nervous system, and spinal cord. Galen summarizes the views of the philosophers and physicians of antiquity when he writes, quote, "In emissions of semen, we lose at the same time the vital force. It is not therefore surprising that too frequent coition enervates, since it deprives the body of its purest parts." Unquote. Dr. Laurent writes, quote, "The ancient Hindus recommended to men sexual abstinence of long duration, thinking that, by this means, the internal secretion of the sexual glands would be absorbed into the system, and that they would thereby reap all the benefits inherent in such a secretion. By this, it seems that thousands of years before Claude Bernard and Brown Sequard, the Hindus already appreciated the great importance of the internal secretions. With reference to the ingenious experiments of Steinach, causing retention of the seminal fluid, I should like here to mention the fact that already about 1500 years ago, the great Hindu physician Dhanwantarid recommended in his book, Susharat, written in the Sanskrit language, retention of the semen through an abstinent life as a means of enhancing the strength of body and mind. Indeed, such a belief is even now popular among the Hindu race in India, and is based moreover on the precepts of their religion." Unquote. Already in the 16th and 17th centuries, it was noted by physiologists that there was a relationship between the sex glands and the body as a whole. Riolan believed that there was a relationship between the testicles and the nervous system, and that the strength, courage, and nerve force of men were derived from these glands, while eunuchs failed to show signs of virility because of their absence. Ambroise Paré also noted the degeneration of eunuchs and castrated animals. Towards the end of the 17th century, the tubules of the testes were first discovered, and it was supposed that they produced a vital force which pervaded the entire organism. During the 18th century, it was believed by most physiologists that the semen was absorbed into the blood when it's retained in this way, produced the growth of beard and the various changes of puberty. Thus, the great physiologist Huller, in his Elements of Physiology, which appeared in the middle of the 18th century, stated that the semen, after accumulating the seminal vesicles, is absorbed into the blood and carried throughout the body, and in this way produced sexual traits. The modern experimental study of this problem dates back to 1776, when Bordeaux, a French physician, published a book entitled Medical Analysis of the Blood, in which he recorded his observations of the effects of castration. These observations led him to the conclusion that the sex glands supply to the body certain chemicals which renew and restore the life of the body, giving the necessary vigorous tone to all of its organs. Such a source of vitality, he said, was lacking in eunuchs and in the aged. To Bordeaux belongs the credit of first clearly formulating the concept of internal secretion, and showing that the influence of the sex glands upon the body was due to definite chemical substances which they elaborate and send into the blood, and not to any assumed vital force. Bordeaux's work was ridiculed and ignored by the conservative French physicians of his day, and was forgotten for almost a century. In 1849, his conclusions were experimentally verified by Berthold, who found that, when the testes of roosters were transplanted into their abdomens, no signs of castration appeared, which indicated that they still continued to send their secretions into the blood. However, when the transplanted glands were removed from the abdomen of one of the roosters, it immediately lost its male traits and became a capon. Berthold therefore concluded that the sex glands exercise their influence upon the organism through certain chemicals which they pour into the blood. These resorbed secretions, he said, are carried throughout the body and have an especially powerful influence on the nervous system.